All right, welcome everybody to the Broward Real Estate and Business Network. Today we have a special presentation by Larry Karp and his team that specializes in Delaware Statutory Trust as a method of doing 1031 exchanges into a package of real estate rather than a particular structure. And he had a presentation recently that I attended, and a new product came to my attention that I'd never heard of before, which is to make an investment use out of a loss. So Larry, if you could
Sure.
introduce the rest of your team, explain your regular Delaware Statutory Trust, also the exciting idea of the Amazon package where you can borrow your investment back to have it as tax-free money. So how long you would have to wait before that happens, and then how long you'd have to stay in the investment. And then lastly, how it is that if you have a loss in real estate that you can put that loss to use. So without any further ado, Larry Karp, who's
Yep.
a member of this group for a while. So Larry, please tell us about that and introduce your team.
Yep. So for those that don't know me, I'm sure most of you know me by now. You've heard my overview of what I do. Before I get into it, my partner Scott Offerman is on the phone. He's out of Manhattan. It's really 1031financial.com. That's the firm that he founded 12, 13 years ago. He's going to present kind of the use cases that you were just talking about before we go there. What we do actually is we work with clients and client fiduciaries like attorneys, CPAs, brokers, lenders, etc., to help them, when they're going through a 1031 exchange, which to complete the process is not trivial. And we're an outlet, we're an option. And what we do and all we do are we represent big institutional sponsors, typically plus or minus a billion in size, typically larger than a billion in size. And these sponsors, all they do are they create a structure called a DST, or a Delaware Statutory Trust, right? Acronym DST. And what that is effective 20 plus years ago from a revenue ruling from the IRS that said that Delaware statutory trusts are 1031 like kind eligible entities. They're still real estate. They're really big private placements where the investor that is looking to defer tax for a 1031 exchange um, essentially buys a fractional interest in these large private placements. And these private placements can go as small as sub 100 million, maybe 50 to 100 million, but typically they run in the multi-hundred million to even $1 billion range. And they're typically created again by those big 25 institutional sponsors that I mentioned, names like Cantor Fitzgerald, Inland Securities, Pasco, people like that. And they put these structures together, and they really act, smell, taste, feel like triple net lease properties, where essentially they are real estate, but they're securitized real estate, private placements that again the client buys a fractional interest in. But the beauty of them is they still get their passive income. They still get most likely capital appreciation. They're obviously doing it for tax deferral purposes. But the beauty of it is now they don't have to ever deal with a tenant ever again or anymore, because it's managed by those big institutional players. Now, we're getting a lot of interest in this area Scott's been doing this 12 plus years, based in the Metro New York area. I opened up Florida about a year ago. I'm from New York, but I opened up Florida down here about a year ago in South Florida. So I'm typically up and down the state, but we're seeing interest from all over the country. Um, People, as I like to say, I would say out of 10 people in the business, maybe three fully understands how to leverage the tool of a 1031 exchange. And I would say less than that really fully grapples or understands what a DST is, a Delaware Statutory Trust. Um, so with that, Scott, thank you for joining. Maybe you want to take over and do an amended version of the presentation you did at Salt 7 in Las Olas 2 weeks ago, if you don't mind.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Nice to meet everyone. Basically, we're here to fix problems. So when people are selling their investment real estate, they really think that 45 days is a long period of time. It's actually goes by very quickly. And to replace a property within 180 days can be quite cumbersome and challenging as well. So I like to tease that the DST provides a additional option. Think of it as door number 3. So when somebody sells their investment real estate, they can pay the tax. Door number 2, they sell their investment real estate, do a 1031 exchange, go out and find their own replacement property. They buy it, and now they're back to managing real estate again. And then door number 3 is let's call it the fully turnkey solution, DSTs, where you have very large institutional size properties managed by uh, professional real estate investment firms that specialize typically in one portion of an individual asset class within real estate. So we'll have sponsors that specialize in self-storage. We'll have sponsors specialize in multifamily. We'll have sponsors who specialize in industrial. And so 95% of the products that Larry and I sell provide a standard income. So when people will use the most typical example of an investor, someone who's, bought real estate a long time ago, been in the trenches, managed that real estate, dealt with the tenants, fixing the toilets, everything, put the kids through school. Now mom and dad are reached a point where they're thinking about winding down. They've got an extremely highly appreciated asset. They're going to go and sell the asset, and then they find out the tax implications of what's going to happen in terms of depreciation, recapture, and capital gains. So here we provide them an option where they can take the proceeds and defer any of the gains using the 1031 exchange. If it's an older client and they tell us, hey, we're selling for 2 million and this 2 million represents 90% of our total net worth, well, we're going to take that 2 million and create a diversified portfolio. So we'll put them in, let's say, 4 or 5 different investments of equal amounts, maybe 400,000 in some multifamily, 400,000 in student housing, et cetera, et cetera. And now we've created a diversified portfolio, so all their eggs aren't in one basket. And the typical DSTs like this that are cash flowing, and right now we're seeing, rate of return between 5 and 8%, depending on the product. But we're seeing an average full cycle time of roughly 5 years. So that means that on that example of the $2 million client, if they're in 5 different properties, one of their properties is going to sell after year 4, 4.5. Then another one will sell around 5. Maybe another one will sell at year 5.5. Each time it sells, the client is sharing in the appreciation of the property. So if they put 400,000 in, and let's say they sold the property for 20% appreciation, well, then they're going to get an email from the sponsor saying, hey, your 400 is now 480. Do you want us to deposit the money into the account where your monthly income's been going? Or B, do you want to do another 1031 exchange? So this way, during their retirement, if the investor has a change of economic circumstance, they will be back at the line of scrimmage determining what to do with that money as it rolls over. So let's say on that first one, 4.5, they reinvest in another DST, and that kind of goes back to the line. So now we have 4 or 5 liquidity events that are going to happen over the next 5-year period again and again and again. So it provides some flexibility, diversification, and income. Our main goal with the DST is preserve principal, then provide a monthly income. And then on the back end, when the property sells, we're hoping for some good appreciation for the client to share in. All while they continue to receive the benefits of real estate, the pass-through of depreciation, appreciation, and income. Now we get to our two specialty products. Actually, there's 3 specialty products. A lot of times, if you're a commercial real estate broker, you have a client, you find them a great property. Let's say you find them 2 great properties. Well, one of the problems is that you only have 45 days to identify your replacement property. So if those 2 properties go sideways, let's say you do the due diligence, you do check the soil, we've got some contamination, and that deal falls through. Then for whatever reason, the seller pulls out of the second property. Well, your client's going to have a failed 1031 exchange. So what we have is we have an option for individuals to pick a property like an Amazon, where we have large, credit-worthy tenants. Typically, these offerings are around 300 to 400 million. And so let's say in an example of 3, let's use a round number, $10 million, right? So the client has 10 million, their 2 other deals fall through, they invest 10 million in Amazon, they now have completed their 1031 exchange. They wait 30 days, they get their first month's distribution of their share of the rent, and then they can avail themselves the option to refinance out at 86% loan to value. So on a $10 million deal, they're going to pull out 8.6 million. They are now free to do whatever they want with that money. They've embedded all the depreciation, recapture, and the capital gains in the Amazon property. And now it's a 20-year interest-only loan, which is coterminous with the 20-year lease with Amazon. And the sponsor is actually going to be the one making the payments. So typically, whether it's this scenario of using the Amazon as the third property, or if it's just a client that says, hey, I was going to cash out anyway, but I don't want to pay the tax. Well, instead of paying 20 or 30% between the capital gains and the depreciation recapture, and then if they reside in a state other than Florida, you have a state tax. So we see anywhere from 20 to 40% is the real active rate above and beyond the adjusted cost basis of the property being sold. So on a $10 million sale, that tax could be 2 million, 3 million, even as great as 4 million. Whereas with the refi, they're reinvesting 14%. They leave $1.4 million in the deal, and now they've got the 8.6 million. So even if they go back into real estate with that 8.6 million, now that they're off the clock, they go back to their broker, they're shopping again. Well, that 8.6 million is new cost basis. So when they invest in that real estate, they're going to get a brand new depreciation schedule on the real estate that they're investing in. And they made a 20-year investment with 14% of their money. So if they're an older investor, let's say they're 75, this is going to be part of their estate planning. They're going to leave that property to their heirs. When they pass, the heirs are going to get the step up in cost basis, right? And when they sell the property in 20 years, they don't have to replace the debt. So, there's options here. That's one of our big ones. The other situation where our reverse product, now separately, we have almost the absolute reverse. A lot of times when people are doing 1031 exchanges, they have to replace the debt. So if I have a $10 million building and I sell it, but I had a $4 million mortgage, when I get to the closing, right, $6 million will go to my qualified intermediary, and $4 million will go to pay off the mortgage with the bank. But the IRS under Section 1031, right, says that if I sell for 10, I got to buy for 10. Now, due to the tight capital markets and an aversion to lending money to real estate now, a lot of times we're seeing investors having problems replacing the debt. Now, we have something similar. Right now, let's use the National Archives in St. Louis, another creditworthy tenant, obviously Uncle Sam, 20-year lease. But instead of putting all 10 million in there, what this particular investment has is the debt's already there. So they already have, on a $10 million purchase, there's already 8.6 million of debt. So for me to buy 10 million, all I need is $1.4 million. And I can get a closing statement showing a purchase for 10 million. So going back to my example of me needing to replace $4 million, well, about 150 per million. So let's say I'm working with a commercial real estate broker. I can go around and say, okay, let's go ahead and purchase 150 times 4. Anyone? 600,000? Okay, so 600,000. I buy the debt in the National Archives in St. Louis, and that leaves me with 5.4 million to go and do an all-cash deal with my broker. Now I purchased 2 properties. I purchased one just to replace the debt with non-recourse loan. So, and then I do an all-cash deal. So there's another little avenue. And in the same flavor, right now, I'm sure everyone that has seen in the news, a lot of investors, real estate investors who own office buildings, they're going to hand the keys back to the bank because they've had a drop in occupancy. They have a lower interest rate on their mortgage. They're having problems paying that. It renews in 3 years, and at the higher interest rate, there's no way they can carry that building anymore. So let's say they own 4 or 5 buildings, and the bank wants to do them a favor and accept the deed in lieu of foreclosure. And let's use the same 10 million. They owe 10 million to the bank. Well, when you surrender the keys, when you surrender that deed back to the bank is going to send you a 1099 for the debt forgiveness for 10 million. So now, even though you don't owe the bank and they're not going to try and foreclose and chase you around for the money, now you're going to owe the tax bill on $10 million. Well, most people don't realize that they can do a 1031 exchange with a deed in lieu of foreclosure because the IRS deems that debt forgiveness and the surrendering of the deed to be a sale. Okay, so we can defer that. Now you got to say to yourself, okay, now that poor guy, he's got to buy $10 million where he's going to get the money. Well, what's worse is where is he getting the $2 to $4 million to pay the tax on that $10 million of debt forgiveness? Instead, they can make an investment in the National Archives in St. Louis by putting $1.4 million investment and purchasing a total of $10 million. 8.6 million of debt is provided non-recourse. So who would you rather be? Would you rather be the poor landlord that is now owing the IRS $2 to $4 million and never going to get that money back forever? Or the person who got lucky enough to find out that they can do a 1031 exchange, scrape together the $1.4 million and made an investment in lieu of paying the tax? I usually tease right about now and say I'm going to pull out the advanced financial calculator, okay, to figure out what's better, 2 to 4 million of tax or $1.4 million investment. So that's kind of the ways that Larry and I can help. People have used that refinance product to take out partners on property when I had 3 siblings in an S corp selling a $36 million property to Blackstone up here in New York. The S corp is like the Three Musketeers, all for one and one for all from a tax perspective. So what we had the client do is they went ahead and had the S corp enter into a buy-sell agreement with the sister who wanted out of the property. They went ahead with the 1031 exchange. They then purchased just shy of $14 million of the Amazon. They waited the 30 days. They did the refinance. They triggered the buy sell. They bought the sister out of the S corp. She paid the tax, and the S corp went ahead and with a full deferral doing the 1031 exchange. So there are a lot of tools that are provided to Larry and I, leveraging some of these specialty DSTs to help clients when they're encountering problems during the sale of real estate and they need solutions. And I think if I didn't kill everybody's brain cells today, I think that's more than enough in terms of me going on and on and on and on and on. But
Let's hope, yeah,
oh,
thanks. So let's open up the questions. Alex, maybe you want, I'm sure you have some questions. You're usually the, you're the attorney here.
So if I understand this correctly, and this is new stuff for me, you're eligible to borrow your investment back on the Amazon investment after 30 days. Is that correct?
yeah, I mean, you could do it the next day. However, for good bookkeeping and a good paper trail for the IRS, we recommend waiting 30 days to prove that this wasn't the sole intent during the 1031 exchange. And the fact that you get a distribution shows that you could have continued to get distribution, but you availed yourself to refinance. So it's just what we like to be more conservative during this, even though most real estate attorneys say all you have to wait is a microsecond to refinance after 1031 exchange.
And is the Amazon investment a 20-year investment?
It's a 20-year hold. Yep.
All right. Also, if you need to do a 1031 exchange and I call you up, can you jump into an existing investment, or do I have to coincide with a brand new deal?
Well, because our programs are fractional interests are available. So as an example, if Cantor Fitzgerald were to buy a $100 million rental community up in St. Petersburg, right, from a builder that just finished building it in 2023, they finished leasing it up, and now Cantor says, we love that property. So Cantor creates the Cantor Fitzgerald St. Petersburg multifamily DST. They put 100 million into the trust. The trust buys the property. At the beginning, Cantor Fitzgerald owns 100% of that DST. 60 to 90 days later, at the end of the syndication, Cantor Fitzgerald has sold out their entire position, right, to investors making $1 million investment, $500,000, 295,000, whatever the numbers are. So now they have 200 investors that own that property. Cantor got their money back plus an acquisition fee. Now they're managing the property for the investors. So at any time, Larry and I have 60 to 70 properties where during the equity raise, anybody can come in and buy so long as there's equity left. The moment the last piece of equity is sold, that's no longer available. But Cantor, they got their money back, rinse and repeat. So they're going to bring another product into market. So as product sells out, the sponsors are bringing like-kind products back to us again. And then that's one of the new offerings that we have. So we typically get about 60 to 120 days worth of availability on a particular property before it's fully syndicated.
Okay, so let's say that I'm closing on a sale today, May 9th, and I've got $1 million of taxable income, and I want to send it to you. I have 45 days to pick an investment vehicle, correct?
That's correct. So there's two rules. There's the 3 property rule, or if you sell for $1 million, there's the 200% rule. So you can identify more than 3, so long as all the combined fair market value is not greater than 2 million.
Right. So then you'll give me a list of options. I have to pick a minimum, or a maximum of 3 of them in 45 days, and then you have to close that deal in 180 days for me to complete my exchange. Is that right?
That's correct. But if you say to me, Alex, you say, hey, Scott, I'm only going to do DSTs,
Right.
right? Well, the moment you identify, we're going to go ahead and close. So it typically takes us 3 to 5 business days to close on a DST. Our record is 18 hours from meeting the client. Okay, so we can do it quickly if we're forced to. But if somebody says, hey, I'm not looking at other stuff, I'm only doing DSTs, we're going to identify and close pretty much within 3 to 5 days.
All right. So I don't, as the investor, I don't need for you to finish the pool. I can just join a pool.
Right. You are a landlord the moment you close. So let's say you sell on the 15th and you're in the new property on the 20th. You're going to get 10 days of rent the following month on the 10th of that month. You're going to get your pro rata share of the rents for the days that you're a landlord. So while Cantor is liquidating or selling all the interest, they're receiving the income for the portion that they still owe. They still own. Okay, so everybody's a landlord and earning rent the moment they purchase in, because the properties are already cash flowing.
Okay, I had seen some commentary on the internet that sometimes it's hard to find enough DSTs to get into. How many, at any given time, how much choice might I have as an investor?
Yeah, you're going to have 60 to 75 different properties. And this is representing about 4 to 6 billion of equity available for purchase at any time. So you're not going to have that. Now, there are some people that dabble in DSTs where their broker dealer might have an inland product or a Pasco product. Our broker dealer has all the sponsors. Now, at any given moment, if you say, hey, Scott, what would you recommend? Out of those 65 to 70 properties, I'm going to boil it down to, here are my top 10. These are the ones I like. This is what I would put my parents into. Here's where I would be going. I like this student housing. I like that multifamily. I like this senior care facility. I like this Amazon, whatever it is.
All right, another thing that that I noticed that hit me badly in selling a property and not doing a 1031 was the depreciation recapture. How is that dealt with in the 1031 with the DST?
Fully deferred. So let's say I'm in year 21 of my depreciation schedule and you own multifamily, so you have a 27.5 year schedule. When you purchase into the DST, you are now in year 22. So if you sell for $1 million, right? And let's say you buy into one of our DSTs that have some debt on it, right? So let's say it had 30% debt. So you buy $1.3 million. So for the first $1 million, you're going to carry forward your existing depreciation schedule. So now you're in year 22. And on the new real estate, the 300,000 above and beyond your sale price, you're going to get a brand new depreciation schedule for the additional real estate that you added. Does that make sense?
So in effect, I can roll my depreciation forward.
Correct.
Oh, that is a big deal.
Yeah. And we can create a whole brand new depreciation schedule. We had a 3 FBI, regional FBI headquarters portfolio with 65% loan to value. So, and it was cash flowing 5%. Because of the much higher LTV, there was so much new real estate that the new depreciation schedule offset all the taxes on the 5% distribution. So there's some strategies to do depending on what the client wants to have happen.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that had a question for Mr. Offerman or Mr. Karp?
I have one question. This all that you're talking about is very new to me. I am an investor, but I am an investor on the stock market and some other assets. Every time I think about investing on something, the first question that comes to my mind is how liquid it is my investment. I do one of these deals, and you're talking about getting to a new property and getting income on like rent paid to you on a regular basis, but you're talking about long-term investment, right? Suppose 3 years later, for whatever reason, I decided that I need to be out of this.
Okay.
How liquid is that? And if I get out, will then all of the taxes that I saved come and hit me on the back?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So this is, we're not reinventing the wheel. So the reason most individuals go into the DSTs is because they've been long-term real estate investors already. So them knowing, now 5 years is actually not a very long hold in the real estate market.
Right.
Also, if I felt, let's say you and I were sitting down together and you're like, listen, I need some early liquidity. So what I would be telling you is we have some land deals, right? So you're familiar in Florida with Toll Brothers, right? Well, we have another big builder, Megatel, right? MCI, they do a lot of high-end resort amenity type communities. And when they do build outs of planned communities, right, they do it in phases. So if they start building out a community, let's say with phase 1, well, phase 2, phase 3, that real estate is being offered as a DST, okay? And so what they're doing is they go ahead and they bank. So like we got one deal right now where it's a 7% rate of return for phase 3. And their plan is they'll be at phase 3 within 2.5, 3 years. So it's a 3-year hold. All the interest payments are banked, and then you get your money back. No appreciation on this deal. But if you said to me, hey, I'm reinvesting $2 million, I'd say, hey, let's put a portion of that in there, right? So we have the early liquidity option. And then let's say you're in year 3 and you really have a massive change of economic circumstance. Well, typically on these big properties, we have 100 to 200 investors. So the sponsor is willing to email out to all the other investors saying, hey, your fellow investor is looking to sell their position. So just like regular real estate, you can sell your position. We help in that. That's a courtesy, right? And you can liquidate your position and sell it to another investor. And the good part is that they're in that property as well. So you have 100 to 200 people that thought that was a good property to purchase.
Right. And one more question. So when I do something like this, I am on a new property or a commercial property like the archives or Amazon property, and I'm receiving a income every month. What kind of return are you talking about, average? Is there a minimum? Is there or is it risky? Like you are, at the, whatever the market says is going to happen is going to happen. So 1 year I'm getting 5% return or 10% return, in the next year, I'm underwater. Is there a guarantee or minimum of return on investment?
Well, there's no guarantees in regular real estate. There are no guarantees here. However, what we do is part of the process is when we're looking at a property, we actually first look at the sponsor and say, who's the sponsor? What's their history? What's their track record? Right? Then we look at the property. We're also getting third-party due diligence reports from law firms that specialize in that type of due diligence. So every time we look at a property, we get a report on the management team separate, and then we get a report on the property. That's part of our due diligence process of accepting one of those properties on our platform. So we try and do our best. And typically when you see the first year projections, it's not really a projection. This is what the property's currently cash flowing. However, what we have seen in Florida, I mean, I'm sure you've seen it. Look at the insurance increases per door
Right,
on
yeah.
rental properties. You know,
Mhm.
there's only so much. So we're going to encounter the same real estate risk that they had with their own property.
Right, right.
However, we're trying to mitigate it by going with professional companies that we hope are, know the submarket, have a great track record, and when there is a problem, they've got the bandwidth to deal with it.
One more question.
Sure.
Suppose I go into a deal like this and you find me something wonderful. You on your presentation, you mentioned the IRS several times, okay? But question is, how many CPAs out there would be able, at the end of the year, when I ask them to do my taxes, be able to understand all of this and know what to do? And what kind of assistance would I get or the CPA get from you guys on preparing the taxes? Because you can do all of this, and if whoever is doing your taxes does not know what this is about, it's
Well,
not going to help you a lot.
I'm gonna tease. Imagine the CPA when it's tax season and he knows his client's coming in with that folder. That big folder of, oh my God, he's bringing the folder. In lieu of that, right? The sponsors are going to send a professional report, an operating report. Typically,
Okay.
it's either a 1098, 1099, or it'll be a grantor letter showing the breakout of everything. And if there's interest payments, there'll be an interest letter as well. So the CPAs are never happier than when their clients get professional reports. And now instead of data entry, they're copying and pasting all the numbers directly off the reports.
Hey, gotcha.
Thank you. We have time for one more question from Lynn Ottemer.
Hello there. So my question is, thank you so much for the presentation. My question is that let's say I invested $500,000 and comes to the end of the particular investment and they sell it, it pays off, then what do I have to do with my, and I may even get an equity share in it getting sold. So what do I do with my money?
Okay, so you're going to get an email at the end of the investment when they find the buyer, and they're going to say, hey, we have either bad news, right? The property sold 96, 97 cents on the dollar. That happens once in a while. It does, okay? But very rarely. Part of Larry and I's job is to make sure that when we pick it, we want the property to appreciate, because let's say you put $500,000 in and there's 20% depreciation. You're going to get an email saying your $500,000 is now 600,000. Do you want us to A, deposit that money into the account where your monthly income's been going, or B, do you want to do another 1031 exchange? So now most clients say, I want to do another exchange. They hire the qualified intermediary, the funds get sent there, and now you're back at the line of scrimmage deciding what you're going to do with your money.
Okay. So and if I said I want my money, then I'm gonna pay the capital gain and all of the recapture of the all that other stuff.
Right. And then I'm going to say to you, why do you want to pay any tax? Why don't we refinance that 600,000, right? Because you're going to get more money anyway, and then you can leave the 14% left in the deal to your kids.
Thank you.
Oh, you're
Doug,
welcome.
Doug, I think you had a question.
I did, and I have a few, but in the interest of time, I'll keep it brief.
We have time.
So,
Go ahead.
Scott, thank you for the presentation. My understanding is, using the Amazon example, Amazon is going to sell their asset to the DST sponsor, enter into a lease back. That lease back is going to be 20 years, let's say. I come in year 19.
No.
Well, because you haven't sold all the slices of the Amazon deal.
So you could
I'm not getting in day one. I'm getting
hold
in
on.
day 6 months later or something.
Right. You're getting somewhere from, you're in the first year of the lease. So instead of 20 years, it's going to be about 19 years. It's going to be a 19-year hold instead of 20.
Okay. And it's not the DST itself, sponsor, that's doing the refi. It's myself. I am going to the bank with my stream of triple net credit tenant lease stream.
They have pension money on the standby, ready to lend money to any of the investors in that property because they like the creditworthiness of Amazon. So the sponsor is literally handling everything for you. You're signing off, I'm taking this loan, even though it's non-recourse, you sign, and then they're going to wire you the funds.
Okay. So, all right, that was my question. So it's my loan. However, I'm the obligor under that loan. However, it's been arranged and put together by the DST sponsor.
That's
Okay.
correct. And it's non-recourse, so
Non-recourse. That's fine.
yeah.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to get that clear. Thank you.
My pleasure.
All right, Mr. Offerman and Mr. Karp, thank you very much. It was great seeing you in person 2 weeks ago, and I very much thank you for coming to join our Zoom meeting.
My
So with that, thank you again, and we'll see you at our next Zoom call. Take care, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you.